Welcome everybody to another episode of Community Heroes Interview, entitled The Interview. And as you know, our primary focus is to raise awareness for the special need and average population. And today we have another interesting story. As I was just browsing and trying to find another inspiring story, I ran across this one, and today I had the pleasure interviewing Miss Tiara Mercius. Um, how you doing today?
I am well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Again, like I said, I'm gonna let you unfold your story, but like I said, just from reading it, I just thought it was a good story to raise awareness on. So I'm just going to jump into it. The first thing that I always like my viewers to know is just a little bit about our guests and where they're from, and their hometown and background and stuff. Yeah.
Making sure you can hear me.
Yeah.
Okay, so I am originally from New York. I grew up in Mount Vernon, and now I live in California, LA County, Southern California, nice and sunny. And I've been out here for quite some time now. So I guess I should probably start saying that I'm from LA, but New York is always in my heart.
Yeah, it's ironic because I would love to go to California. I've recently interviewed the founder of the Magical Playground Foundation, Miss Olenka Villarreal. She's really nice, and we were talking about maybe taking my family out there. So who knows? Maybe in the near future, if we're in the area, I might could swing by or something.
Why not?
Yeah. So my next question, uh, with your story, what makes it so unique is um, early on in life, some of the um, barriers and obstacles you had to encounter. So as I was reading your story, you mentioned in your About Me section on your website that you had a condition of blood clots that caused you to have various surgeries. So if you can just tell us a little bit about, just their early on experience, diagnosis, and the surgeries that had to happen due to the blood clots.
Sure. So I was about 6 months old when I started developing these blood clots. It was because of a form of meningitis, meningococcal that I had developed. They say rare blood disease, but that's the official name. And so I've actually been an amputee since I was basically 6 months old. So call it all my life. And I've had successive surgeries since then, up until I was about 10 years old. That was the last actual surgery. And, people ask, like, wow, you've had all those surgeries. It was about 13 by the time I was 10. And they weren't all because of blood clots. Like the initial surgeries were the amputations because the blood was clotting and because of it was causing, well, my limbs to die, gangrene, basically. And that's my son in the background. And so they had to do the amputations because of that. It was too late to try to get rid of the blood clots any other way. And all the surgeries after that initial one were either skin grafting or surgeries to prepare me for prosthetics. So like it was almost as if as I got older, every new pair of prosthetics that I received, I had to have a surgery to go along with it. So, and those were mostly bone realignment surgeries because your bones grow the way they want to grow, and I was a growing child. But yeah,
Right.
that's the story behind the clotting in the beginning and all of the surgeries after that.
Yeah, I got another question I want to ask, and I'll kind of weave it into the next question.
Okay.
Um, so my next question that I wanted to ask was I want to talk a little bit about just having to adapt to various environments, and having these different, amputations, and now not being able to use your limb, just how you had to adjust to life. I'm gonna let you answer that part first before I jump into the next question that kind of popped in my mind. But this initial one, if you could just discuss a little bit about just being an amputee and just having to adjust to just life in general compared to someone else that had regular use of their limbs.
Okay. So first of all, I was born and had these amputations before the Americans with Disabilities Act was signed in 1990. I'm an 80s child. So for the first fewish years of my life, there was no ADA. So a lot of the accessibility issues that well, not issues, but the answers to access that we have now, like elevators in certain buildings and ramps and curb cuts, just a lot of those things, they existed, but they weren't mandated by law under the ADA. So, for example, when I finally started school as a kindergartner, I actually didn't go to school in my own district. I had to be bused to another district because that was the closest school, probably the only school actually at the time, that could accommodate me with my with my disability. I did not use a wheelchair growing up. I actually did not start using a wheelchair full time until I got to college. So I walked on prosthetics and crutches for the basically my entire life up until I graduated high school. And I only really ever used a wheelchair when I was in the hospital or going on like a school field trip, if I went on a school field trip. So my elementary school, for example, was the only one in my area that had actual ramps and elevators that could accommodate me. So I guess that was a part of my early adapting. I tell people that I grew up in an ableist household, and I don't really mean that in a negative way. Even though we do see ableism as something that's negative, because it is. But my household was more of this sort of yes, you don't have legs, but you're normal. It was that kind of a household. So I grew up like I said, walking around on prosthetics, and I would be able to climb stairs as long as somebody was there to assist me. I sometimes was able to do things that the other children would do, like the occasional school field trip and sometimes go to my friend's house. But I mean, I didn't grow up with the mindset of I'm disabled, I have to overcome. I grew up with the mindset of, nah, there's nothing wrong with me. I just don't have any legs. And I see how that was kind of a harmful way of thinking, because that meant that I didn't really know what the world was going to be like as a disabled person. I mean, I was sheltered, I was protected, things were done for me. My guardian, my grandmother, my mom and them, they made sure, or they tried to make sure, that my upbringing was as close to normal as possible, even though it really wasn't. Um, yeah, at least the growing up part, through, like I said, through the end of 12th grade, it was just, have you ever heard of the term super crip?
I haven't heard of that term yet.
Okay. I feel like if I just say, yeah, I was a super crip, a lot of people, at least in the disabled community, would understand what I'm saying. That's that disabled person that's just like, yeah, I'm disabled, but look at me do this and look at me do that. And I can do this and I can do that. My disability doesn't stop me. And we tend to ignore the fact that it's not the disability always, sometimes it is, but it's not always the disability that stops you from doing something. It's the barriers, the external barriers that stops you. Like I said, I couldn't go to school in my own district with the other kids from my neighborhood because they didn't have um, elevators, or they didn't have um, paraprofessionals. They didn't. It wasn't because of me. It was because of them. Or I didn't get to go on all the school field trips because they didn't have a bus with a lift on it, because I couldn't climb school bus steps, or because they didn't have things in place that would allow me to go on certain field trips. So I missed out on a lot. But I was still that person that said, hey, look at me do this. I can do that. I can swim across the Hudson River. And I did, by the way, for charity. Look at me. I can push my wheelchair in this quarter marathon. Look at me. I'm doing it, but I'm disabled. Yay. And it just meant that, I didn't always advocate for what I needed because I didn't grow up with that mindset.
Yeah.
Super crit.
Yeah. I think you said a whole mouthful. Definitely piggyback on what you just said. I myself, I have myosin deficient muscular dystrophy. And one thing I've noticed from various conversations, individuals that I myself classify, I'd say, having severe disabilities, is whenever you have a physical disability that is severe, but cognitively, you are very strong-minded. A lot of time counties aren't prepared for that because, you're in a traditional classroom setting a lot of times. And even though the concept of inclusion has always been around, but the practice of inclusion, like you just said, has not always been there. So you have those situations like yourself, someone who's pretty strong-minded cognitively, but there's still barriers. Like you said, there's a school is 2 stories, but every year they got to make sure you have a classroom that's on the first floor, which happened with me. So you never get a chance to see what the second floor looks like of your school, which is unfair because if everyone has access to should have access to up and down, hindsight, the school should have been built. Well, like you just said, with an elevator, or if you're gonna bus students with physical disabilities, or at least let them register to the school, all the buses should have a ramp on it. And I remember in high school, we didn't have no buses with ramps on them, so I would have to leave school about 30 minutes early and ride the elementary school bus that had a ramp on it. So I was riding with elementary kids.
Me too. Me too. I rode, you know what? And I wasn't actually, like, I was never embarrassed about it. I rode the short bus. I mean, it was literally short. And it was the only buses that our district had, our school system had, that had an electric lift on it. So it didn't matter if you were in general ed or special ed or whatever the case may be, you all rode the same bus because it's the only one that they had for you. And I rode the yellow school buses that were basically for elementary school kids my entire K through 12 academic years. And I actually was not, like I said, I wasn't embarrassed about that because I didn't know there was a stigma behind the short bus. Like I just didn't know because it's all I knew. Like riding that bus was all I knew. And you were talking about, being stuck on the first floor, not being able to see upstairs or just other parts of the building. So before I entered into kindergarten, my grandmother, my guardian, she kind of had to fight with the school district, with the school system, to make sure that I was in general ed classes, because my only disability at the time was I was physically disabled. I was walking on prosthetics and crutches, like I said, but I was physically disabled. And so they didn't know what to do with me. So they wanted to put me in the self-contained classroom. Do you know what that is?
I'm assuming a class that probably had one or two, only a handful of students in there. Probably that's what I'm assuming.
Yeah, I think it had maybe probably the regular class, like a little bit less. Like if a regular general ed class had 20 students, the self-contained probably had 15. It really wasn't any different as far as class size, but it was the students that did not go to any other classroom. It's like you literally stayed in the same class all day. You had your music class there, you had your art class in there, while the other students around the school building were going, outside down to the cafeteria for lunch. You ate in the classroom. You spent all day in the same classroom. And our elementary school, all the students had, math, science, blah, blah, blah in the same class, but at least they went to PE, they went to lunch, they went to art and music. Self-contained, you just spent the whole day in that classroom. And they wanted me in that class. And as a matter of fact, the other students who had physical disabilities also were in that class because that's what the district wanted. And my grandmother had to fight to get me put in general ed with other non-disabled students, or yeah, at least non-physically disabled students, because that's just how they handled it back in the 80s where I'm from. So that was a fight, or else I would have been just stuck in one classroom all day and not interacting with any other students in the school. As
Yeah.
a matter of fact, when I was in kindergarten, I still remember this I had a paraprofessional who stood with me all day, just sat in the classroom next to me all day. For what? Mm-hmm. It was the compromise between the school system and my grandmother, whatever. I didn't get to go to lunch. So even though I was in general ed classes, I actually ate lunch alone in the classroom while the other students went to the cafeteria or to the playground for like the first 2 years of school, until my paraprofessional said, this is not fair. We need to let her, you know,
Yeah.
go to the cafeteria and go outside. But yeah, early life Tiara.
Yeah. And competition like this is one of the main reasons why I wanted to create community heroes, just so people can understand that, the self-awareness and self-identity, things, just small things, just like being able to be in general population, eating with someone, being able to interact with other individuals that you see every day, but your situation for a moment and then you're excluded, is not healthy, especially for someone growing up and you're seeing this stuff and you're asking questions. Why? Can I interact with my peers? And it raises the stigma. That's why we have stigmas, because the school non-verbally is saying this person is different, so they cannot be amongst you, the able-bodied person.
Exactly.
And I'm so glad that now, as we move in the 21st century, technology has allowed us to bring these stories to light and help break some of these stereotypes down, stigmas, and ultimately reveal some of the prejudice that has been out there for a long time. So,
Yeah.
but yes, definitely that. I remember also when I was in middle school, I love basketball, I love football, I love sports, and I always wanted to go to the games, but I couldn't because my family, we didn't have much money, and my dad a lot of times wasn't in a position to take me to those games because of various personal problems he had. But I mean, one particular year, the coach of the PE, he was one of my best mentors, and he saw my passion for basketball, and he let me be basically kind of quote unquote a towel boy. I went along and kept score, the games and stuff. But our buses, the activity buses, again, they didn't have ramps on them, and so they personally got some guys together and they lifted my wheelchair onto the bus to make sure I could go to a couple other games and make sure I got home afterwards. And even today, I appreciate that effort. But in all actuality, the school should have had a bus already in place where that shouldn't have been a problem. You know,
Yeah.
and one school, but in particular, I remember they didn't have a ramp for me to get into the school, and they had to lift the wheelchair upstairs for me to get into the gym.
No way.
Yeah, I'm not gonna. I mean, like I said, I'm not gonna call the names out in school, but I remember that, and I'm thinking, we're talking about late '90s, like '97, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm thinking this is crazy. This, we're in 1997, and it might have been early '98, but you would think at least all schools would at least have a ramp in place for at least the
Something.
yeah. I mean, we're talking about the gym, so that everybody was taking advantage of. I thought, you know, but there again, like I said, just those things like that. So the other part of the question I wanted to ask that's not my question is I know a lot of times individuals that have met me have made this statement, and I'm going to kind of paraphrase it, but it's kind of pretty much the same thing. A lot of time, individuals see you with a disability, and then they see your accomplishments, and they see the vibes that you have a lot of times, and they say, "Man, I truly admire you. I know who you are, what you do. I don't know if I would be that way if I was in your position." Um, and my question, I guess, was, have you ever had individuals kind of come and ask you, you know, how how do you feel, or how do you keep that mindset, and with your situation, and then a lot of times they'll say, um, no, don't you wish that you could be able to do this in my situation, get up and walk around, or they ask me, don't your back hurt sometimes? Um, so, and I know for me, this is my response, and I'll let you say and give you a reaction in a moment. But a lot of time I tell individuals, sometimes you can't miss something you never had, you know, so it doesn't really affect me.
Right. You said how if it's ever happened, only all the time, Tyrone, only all the time, my entire life. Um, as far as the I admire you part, I hate that. I really do. Some people call it inspiration porn. I call it fake inspiration. Because what are you admiring, really? That a disabled person is actually outside of the house doing things that they do on a regular basis. I remember I was in my final year of undergrad and I was sitting on campus, and this person, we had an open campus, so anyone could just walk through it. Somebody came walking through, and she's seen me before. And I was sitting outside in front of one of the buildings, just outside hanging out. And she asked me if I went to that school because she always saw me there. And I'm like, yeah, actually, I'm about to graduate in X amount of weeks. And she said, wow, I admire you for that. You're graduating. You went to college. And I'm just like, yeah, I mean, so. And I could have taken it, I could have, but I didn't. Taken it as, oh yeah, I'm a black woman in USA, not a lot of money, and I went to college. Because that in itself is a feat for a lot of people. But that's not what she meant, because she brought up my disability. And it's just like, are you kidding me? Are we still pretending? And this was after the year 2000. Are we still pretending that disabled people don't lead average lives, obviously with some modifications and adaptations because of the disability, but still, you know? Um, I Yeah, I don't like it when people say that to me, if they find me inspiring because I'm leading an average or almost average life because of disability. I just don't. Um, but I mean, sometimes that's what keeps people going. And like, I hate to be that catalyst for people sometimes, but if that's what keeps you going, then whatever, let me be that. If that's what keeps you motivated to do what you want to do, I can't stop how you feel, you know? I
Yeah.
can't stop how a person feels when they see me. They get the warm and fuzzies. I can't stop it. And like you said, we're in the year after, late 90s, now we're in the year 2021 and it's still a thing. Um, I just feel that at this point in the decade, like we should be so integrated into society that it's just an everyday thing for you to see a disabled person out and about. Um, Not getting their wheelchairs carried up a flight of stairs or something, but we still see that. Um, People not looking at us in awe because we did something like went to the grocery store, but we still see that. Um, yeah, I don't know. I just I don't want you being the general you to see me and feel that I'm jumping through extra hoops because of my disability and therefore I should be uplifted for it. I am jumping through hoops that society have put in place because their lack of access, because their lack of actual inclusion. Um, and that's not something to be admired. Like me having to do extra work to be involved is not something that I think should be admired from like able-bodied people. I feel differently if the person themselves who's saying that is disabled because I know that they're probably living somewhat of a similar experience to me. And maybe they see the motivation in that, like, she's disabled and doing this, I'm disabled, maybe I can too. Like, it's different when it's coming from another disabled person, at least to me.
Yeah. Uh, and
I hope that
just
answered your question. I'm sorry.
yeah, it did. And just to piggyback off what you just said, one of the things that I talk about and on our page when we start talking about transformation and the concept of self-identification. Like you just said, when you have someone that is in your same peer group, meaning, in the disabled population, we do need to be able to self-identify.
Mm-hmm.
So we can be able to overachieve. So like you said, I don't look at that as them giving us praise or anything like that. When you have someone say, I admire you from that standpoint, I think more so they're saying, thank you for showing me that, being being able to adapt to society is possible. I look at it, them actually doing that, but like I said, other individuals, I don't mind them praising me, but if you're going to praise me, let my disability. If we're doing, let's say a list of 1 to 10, my disability should be at the lower end, 9, 10. The top reasons why you admire me should be because I know I'm an educated man, I'm a homeowner, I'm a father, I'm married, I'm a man of God. You should, you should have a whole stack of other things, and then the
That's not
disability,
disability related.
yeah, and then the disability should be way at the bottom. But like you said,
Exactly.
a lot of individuals, beside the disability, they can't really tell you anything else that they admired you about. Beside the point that you're disabled and you got up and we're talking, they can't no other things they saw in you that they admire, and that's where the problem comes in. At on my point, so I think hopefully society will understand if you're going to praise, let's make our praise be on things that are achievement oriented that other people can do, but you just have done it better than them.
Exactly. Like if you tell me that I inspired you, what did I inspire you to do? Did I inspire you to look around and try to make this society more accessible for other people, or did I just inspire you to feel warm and fuzzy in your heart because you saw me do something you didn't think I could do?
Yeah. So I'm kind of jumping the gun here, but for you, I know as part of your educational background, you have your degree in law. Is it law related? I think I saw that on your webpage, something dealing with law.
Yes. So I actually just graduated well, not just because it was 2018. I graduated with my Juris Doctorate. So that just means I have a law degree. I'm not a lawyer yet. I just took the bar again in July. At the end of July, I'll find out in November if I passed, which means that I can be sworn in as a lawyer. And I have a master's of education, and then, of course, my undergrad degree. So, yeah.
Yeah, see
I was a career student for a little while.
Yeah. See. So for me, I have my master's in psychology, but I personally
Have my
think that
BA in psychology.
yeah. So there are certain degrees that I just know they are more academically rigorous than others. So I took a couple of law classes. Whenever you're going for your undergrad, you take certain classes like law enforcement, and I knew just taking another class like this isn't the field for me. There's too many laws to remember. So my brain just ain't that good for that stuff. So I admire people who go into educational medical field, the legal system, because it's a lot more, in my opinion, that you have to know and stuff. So that would give me one reason why when I saw what you did, I wanted to talk to you because I was like, oh man, she going to this field and be a lawyer. You got to know yourself. You're going to defend.
Yeah, it's even after like law school it's a mess to say the least. Law school is a hot mess. I was lucky enough to be accepted into a school that understood that people who weren't white cisgendered men also had a shot in the school. Like my law school was founded with diversity in mind. Okay. And I appreciate that they even had, like, they had a full-time program, they had an accelerated program, and like a lot of schools, they had the part-time program, but they also had something called a please program, which was for students who had caregiver responsibilities or medical responsibilities.
Oh.
And we went to school pretty much part-time, but like all of our classes ended at a certain time. So we had the whole rest of the day to take care of the things we needed to do. And I appreciated that because it allowed me to go to law school, which is a very rigorous thing already. But it allowed me to go to law school in such a way that I was able to kind of sort of take my time with it, my classes ended before 12 o'clock, which meant I was able to schedule doctor appointments and do my checkups and my, just whatever I needed to do to take care of me and my disabled self. So like that was a plus, and I was lucky enough to get accepted in a sort of school. Otherwise, I don't know if I would have been able to do it. Yeah. To be quite honest, I don't think I would have been able to do it.
That is that's awesome, and I know you said since you're out in California, I wonder. Well, I guess it wouldn't matter. The name of, if you don't mind saying the name of the school you went to for your jurisdiction degree, can you?
Sure. I went to Southwestern Law School. It's in LA, Koreatown. That's where I got my Juris Doctorate from. Did you hear me?
Uh, yeah, you were saying the name of the school is what now?
Yeah, I went to Southwestern Law School in Los Angeles in an area called Koreatown. And that's where I got my Juris Doctorate, my law degree.
Okay, yeah. And I just wanted to say that just for, our listeners, they may want to check into that school to read more about it.
Okay.
So my next question was just kind of asking if um, was there, do you have any other experience related to the law field that you might want to talk about, since that's the field we ultimately want to go in?
Yeah, so as part of my academic program, I did externships and clerkships, like where I would just basically go work in somebody's law office and get academic hours for it. So I clerked for the Los Angeles County Public Defender's Office. I did that for 2 semesters, 2 separate semesters. I've clerked for the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office for 1 summer. That was interesting, in the juvenile division. I have clerked for a couple of nonprofits, such as Public Counsel, where I worked in their children's department, children's law department. That's not really what it's called, but that's what I'm going to call it right now. And where I did foster care adoptions for disabled children who were in foster care but being adopted. And usually they were in foster care already with actual family members. They weren't like with strangers. Family members were like, okay, I'll foster them. So that was great. And then I did a summer and a semester with an organization called Betsedic, another nonprofit in LA, where I did work on self-help conservatorship applications. That was really, and I served as like their Spanish translator. So I worked with a lot of the Spanish speaking clients. What else? I mean, I've done a lot of stuff. I currently, I am a law clerk for a solo practitioner in family law. And so, family law, that's mostly divorces and custody cases. It's sad and it's stressful. But, it's building on the experience that I want to get in the legal field.
Yeah, yeah. It sounds like I said, you're getting a good collection of experience with the various areas that you've worked in. So my excuse me, my next question is kind of one of the other things that I stumbled upon. I was on Twitter and just some of the stuff I follow that deals with special needs and advocates and things like that. I saw the 4-wheel workout tweet come on my Twitter feed, and so I was like, let me read about this because I'm always reading what different advocates are doing. Okay. And I was reading, and that's how I found your page. But I was going to allow you to talk a little bit about 4-wheel workout.
Okay. Oddly enough, compared to how I am now and how I view advocacy now, 4-wheel workout as a brand, I guess started off towards the tail end of, I guess, my super crypt phase. It was me just trying to document my wellness journey, trying to be healthy and lose weight and eat right. And it was going to be that sort of a blog site, where I just say, hey, today I went to go work out and I did this and I did that. And oh, look, this is how much I weigh now. And I joined Twitter. And so 4-wheel workout almost immediately went from a disabled wellness into disability advocacy. And it just almost overnight, because I started to get connected to the disability Twitter, #disability Twitter. And then I saw all these things popping up and all these issues. And even though I've been disabled all my life, my advocacy was self-centered. It had to do with things that I wanted and things that I needed, and it did not include the greater disability community. So when I went somewhere and I saw that they didn't have a bathroom that I could even get into, my advocacy at that point was more so, I need to use the bathroom. You need to figure out how to make that happen, you know? And I never really considered the greater disability community and that we were having these shared experiences because I was not exposed to that growing up. Like I said, I was raised in sort of an ableist household where, you know, disability was just a secondary thing. It's just a thing that I am, but it's not really who I am. And then disability Twitter happened, and I'm like, wait a minute. Yeah, disabled is what I am, but a disabled person is also who I am. And there are all these people all across the globe who are going through very similar experiences. Why am I not talking about this? Who cares about how much weight I lost and how many pounds I just bench pressed last night? When what I should be talking about is maybe the gym is not accessible to other disabled people, or maybe, you know, getting on the bus is a problem, and these greater access needs and the stigmas that are attached with being disabled is greater than me. That's where I need to focus. And then that's how Four will work out, um, literally the site and the handle and just the brand period turned into what it is today.
Okay.
Exposure to other disabled people is what made me who I am today.
Uh, yeah, and you're most definitely right. And again, like I said, that's kind of one of the reasons why I kind of went about forming community heroes. Really about, even though we got established officially in 2019, but something that had been on my mind really 2 years prior, and I just knew that I needed to do something to. I felt like one, leave my mark on, for when people talk about me, they could say that uh, this is what he believed in. Uh,
Yeah.
but but also, like you just said, I had encountered so many things that I realized is not just an issue that I'm facing, but others, from employment issues to traveling issues, um, to even now. One thing I want to really focus on in the new year is
Mhm.
airplane accessibility. That's one topic right now. I never flown in a plane, but as I've been following this issue, we're in 2021, and it makes no sense that we have drones, we have phones that could do Wi-Fi, steal credit card numbers. I mean, we can put a microchip on the back of a fly, but we don't have seats for a person in a wheelchair.
Exactly.
Uh, so, to me, it just is a nonverbal message to everyone in the special needs population, which is 1 in 4 people. Anyone could wake up tomorrow and be disabled. They're
Yeah.
telling us you are a second thought when it comes to airplane travel, and that's sad. And
Yeah.
we have the technology now where this shouldn't even be a conversation. If you are physically disabled, you should have a designated spot on an airplane, and you shouldn't have to worry about your means of mobility being damaged and not being paid for. you
Yeah.
know.
But as is so often the case, even outside of air travel, uh, disabled people are almost always a second thought. Um, just period. You know, I tell people that it's only been like maybe half a century, 50 years or so, that we've been fully, air quote, fully integrated into society, because before a lot of these legislations passed, as far as like As far as like IDEA, the Education Act, the ADA, plus the amendments, the Rehabilitation Act of 75. Like before a lot of this legislation happened, disabled people were relegated to being just at home or institutionalized. So, and you, like I said, it's only been a maybe 50-ish, maybe a little bit more years since that has happened. So people who were alive while we were still, hidden away in the corner are, they're alive now, and it's still not something that they think about. They're like, oh wait, you're outside? Yeah, I am. And since I'm outside, I like to travel. And I would like to travel without a broken wheelchair. And I would like to travel safely, or I would like to do this. And this list of things.
Yeah. That's something. So I definitely understand how you had that, like you just said, that eye-opening experience with your 4-wheel workout website. And like I said, anyone that watching this video, definitely just go and check her site out and support that site. Going to my next question,
Okay.
and it kind of falls into that. With your 4-wheel workout and just some of the other things you've done, can you just talk a little bit about how that has given you the opportunity to be a part of different speaking engagements and kind of push your agenda for advocacy?
So yeah, I actually I've had most of my engagements during COVID because give me one moment. I'm sorry.
You're fine.
One moment. I'm back. Like I said, my son is here. He just wanted a little attention.
I understand my 4-year-old is actually gone right now, but and any other time he probably would have did a backflip in here somewhere.
Yeah, no. He's right there now. Like I said, he just needs a little love and attention. But and he's still fighting in the background. More like fighting his sleep. But engagements, because that was the question. A lot of it happened during the time of COVID, which is still ongoing, because everything went virtual. And because things went virtual, all of a sudden I was able to start sitting on panels and being a part of discussion groups. And it was just like this whole world opened up. Otherwise, generally, a lot of my advocacy depends on the environment that I'm already in. So when I was in law school, that was the not platform. I think platform is the wrong word, but that was the medium. Yes, that was the vehicle that I used to progress my advocacy, disability advocacy. I'm in school. It's relevant to me right now. When I got pregnant, I used to, I had to go to the WIC office, for example, or I had to go to this, for this program called Black Infant Health Program. And so that was relevant to me at that time. That's what I used to progress my disability advocacy and use the situations that I'm currently in as a way to educate other people. So when I was in school, it was disability and education access. When I got pregnant, it was disability and parenting, or, as a mom now, it's still disability and parenting. As a law clerk, it's disability in the legal field. I use whatever is relevant to me at that moment, and whatever opportunity pops up, even if it's just speaking to a class for a couple of minutes, or if it's pointing out to my lawyer boss, hey, maybe you should include this information about such and such disability into your argument because of these reasons, to help a case. Or working in the courthouse, when I was clerking for the public defender's office, I got to see how they use the ADA to give accommodations to people, but also use my experience to educate the other attorneys on practicing in the legal field, because courtrooms and courthouses aren't generally that accessible. So I use the opportunities as they pop up. They're usually not planned. They pop up. So I grab it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's usually how it happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I need to, let me see what, I think that was the last, let me check and see, was that my last question here? Let's see, okay. Yeah. Okay. So I only got a few more questions.
Okay.
So this is kind of two into one. You can just the next two questions are basically just could you let our listeners know, for one, where they could find you and connect with you, and if there's any resources that you wanted to maybe share during this time, you can do that.
Okay. Well, for the first question, he's clapping for the letter R. For the first question, as far as where to connect with me, you can always go to my website at www.4wheelworkout.com, wheelworkout.com. And I have links there for social media. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at the number 4 Wheel Workout. That's my handle, the number 4 Wheel Workout. I'm usually more active on Twitter. It has a huge disability community there, so that's where I spend a lot of my time. As far as resources that have helped me that I want to share with other people, I feel like the best resource is going to always be other people. So I encourage anyone who is listening to this to, on whatever platform they're on, to seek out other disabled people, because they have answers. When I got pregnant, I had so many questions about being a disabled pregnant woman in a wheelchair. And guess who are the people who helped me? People who were formerly pregnant. They have kids now, but in wheelchairs. Programs, I don't really have recommendations for programs in the area because I haven't had much luck with those. They're all run by mostly non-disabled people, and they view us through that lens. So they haven't been that helpful. Oh, puppy. I guess he was over it. His show was ending. But yeah, my best resource, like I said, would have to be other disabled people who have helped me learn and grow along this journey that is 4-wheel workout. That's the best resource that I can tell you to go seek out.
And this last question that we have: is there anything you would like to share for something you consider a milestone since you started 4-wheel workout and just advocating for disability that you just
milestones?
Yeah,
well, you hear him in the background. I feel like my son is one of my greatest achievements, especially in a society that doesn't think that disabled people should be parents or can be parents. I know you mentioned you have a 4-year-old, and I just like people see me outside with my son, as I'm sure they see you with your child, and they're like, how and why? And like I said, if that gives me an opportunity to talk about disabled parenting and parental rights as it pertains to disabled people, then I'm going to snatch up that opportunity. Another achievement, I guess, or milestone is I had started to get involved with contacting local representatives in politics. And I had a chance to sit down with my representative out here and talk about some legislation that was going through the works a few years ago, 2017, 2018. As far as the Americans with Disability Act, they were trying to get that. Some people just want that to go away because they think that it's all frivolous lawsuits when we file lawsuits. And I think one of the best things that happened, at least for me, is I sat with my representative, and he was honest about it. He was like, I'm a huge supporter of the disabled community, and I thought that this legislation was helpful, but also I didn't read it in detail. And now I know that I'm voting no on this. And he did vote no because I followed up and I checked the representative website. Um, Milestone, getting into and graduating from law school is a huge milestone. Like we talked about earlier, it's so rigorous that it can be something that a lot of people with different disabilities just can't do. The time commitment, the work commitment, the requirements. But that was a milestone for me. And it's helped because now I can kind of, like, I can read law better. I can read legislation. I can read cases and see how those would apply to us as a community, or how to use that. I Yeah, I consider all of, like, those things, the things that we've talked about already, I think are big milestones for me that's helping me progress. And my next big milestone is going to be an actual lawyer and being part of the less than 1%. Did you know that less than 1% of the lawyers in this country self-identified as disabled?
And I didn't know that, but I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
I'm surprised because there are a lot of positions and I feel like disabled people are more than, we should be represented a little bit more, but for various things that we talked about, we don't get opportunity
Yeah.
to go in that realm. So I know on TV it's almost basically zero representation in the media of someone who's physically disabled, being a lawyer, a judge, a paralegal, or anything. So,
Yeah.
so
It kind of blew my mind the first time that I saw a disabled lawyer. Mind you, this was like 2015, 16. And I was at a conference out here in LA for the National Bar Association. And I mean, I knew disabled lawyers existed. They have to exist, right? Come on, we're like in every field almost. But I'd never seen another lawyer or judge that's in a wheelchair, because I was wondering, like, how would this work? How would I litigate in the courtroom? And then I saw her stroll past in her wheelchair, and I was just like, oh crap, she's me in the future. And that blew my mind, and it should not have blown my mind, but it did. But I'm glad that I saw that. And I feel that, like you said, the representation in these fields, when we get to see people who look like us in these positions, number one, it normalizes us in these positions. That's number one. But it also motivates. Not inspires with the warm and fuzzies, but it motivates. And leads to greater acceptance.
Yeah, that was awesome. So that was pretty good. I enjoy our conversation. Maybe next time we can maybe do an interview in the future about actually being a parent, and maybe I can bring my little one up here. I think your son wants to be on the camera.
That's exactly what it is, actually. He's been looking over here he's been waving and smiling, trying to get on camera. See him? Hi. He loves to be on camera. So maybe we can do that in the future.
Yeah. Okay, well, again, thank you so much. Okay, listeners, I hope you enjoyed this interview as much as I did with Tiara. And remember, she gave you all her information. Please check her out, follow her, give feedback, and check us out. Remember, go to our YouTube channel, Facebook, all those things, and we will see you again on another interview with Community Heroes. Thank you for looking. Bye. Thank you, Tiara.
Thank you.